Hello everyone and welcome to Simplilearn. In this video on PHP programming, we're going to discuss different PHP concepts from the very basics such as syntax, hello world program up until learning how to collect form data using PHP scripts and also cover a lot more concepts in between. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, before moving on to programming concepts, let us first see what is PHP and some of the reasons why it is useful. Now, PHP stands for Hypertext Preprocessor, which is a recursive acronym but was originally known as Personal Homepage. PHP is an open source server-side scripting language that is embedded into HTML and used for web development. Now, two main terms for focus here are open source and server-side scripting. Now, open source is a term for technology that is freely available to everyone, while server-side scripting means that the entire PHP script is processed on the server side while the user just enjoys the result. Now, let's move on and see why is PHP useful. Because websites developed in PHP functions faster. With PHP, you can create dynamic web pages. PHP frameworks provide security encryption. It is a cost-efficient and an easy-to-maintain language and is platform independent. That is, PHP scripts can run on any platform without the need of any special plugins. So now that we have some understanding of PHP and why it's useful, let us move on to its programming concepts. Now, the first thing that we need to do is set up the environment for our PHP programs. To do that, we just need two softwares. One is Visual Studio Code. Now, this is where we'll be writing all of our programs, all of our PHP scripts. You can download the Visual Studio Code for Windows, Linux, and Mac. And the second one, and a very important one, is XAMPP. Now, XAMPP is a web server solutions package generally used for creating local web servers and databases. As you can see, it is also available for Windows, Linux, and Mac as well. Now, I've already downloaded and installed both of these softwares on my system. Let us see how to make use of them. Now, what we need to do is to use Visual Studio Code. What we do is we go to C drive, XAMPP folder, or wherever you have installed your XAMPP software. We go to that folder, locate htdocs, and let us now create another folder, and you can name it anything that you want to based on your project. Since we are discussing the concepts, let us name it concepts. Now, right click on it, and here, as you can see, it shows open with code. When you click on it, you can see that it opens Visual Studio Code for you, along with the concepts folder that we just created. Now, this is where you will create all your files for your project and will be writing all of your PHP scripts. Now, let's create the first PHP file from here, new file. Let us name it tutorial.php and see how a PHP syntax looks like. So a PHP syntax begins with an angular opening bracket, question mark, PHP, and ends with a question mark and a closing angular bracket, while the PHP script goes in between. So this is the very basic syntax of how PHP scripts are written. Now, let us move on and see how to write a hello world program using a PHP script. So, to print something on PHP, echo is used. Now to use echo, what you need to do is just write the string that you want to print in front of it and save the program. So hello and welcome to Simplilearn. Let us close it and save the file. Now I'm going to show you how to use the XAMPP software in order to run PHP scripts. Go and open your XAMPP control panel. And from the control panel, you have to start this first service, that is Apache. Now this is going to start a local web server on your system. Now open your browser, go to a new tab and type localhost, followed by the name of the folder that we just created into htdocs, that was concepts, and hit enter. Here you can see the file that we just created, tutorial.php, and when you click on it, you can see your first program visible here. Hello and welcome to Simplilearn. Now suppose you have a program that needs to print this exact same string again and again throughout the program. So what are you going to do? Type the entire echo statement through your code or make it simpler. Now to make it simpler, what we need to do is we need to go back to our code and discuss the concept of variables. Now to create a variable, what we need to do is we need to use this $sign followed by the name of the variable. You can name it anything you want. So let us name it str and type hello and welcome to Simplilearn. So this is our first variable. Now this variable str stores this string value. Also you can create different variables for different purposes, such as if you want to store a number, suppose. So you can store number 5, and suppose you want to store a floating variable, and that would be float, and a floating variable is a number with decimal points, so 7.6. So now we have 3 variables in a program. Now one thing to notice if you're coming from a different programming language is that you don't need to define the type of variable in PHP, that is if it is a string, number, or a floating variable. Now to print this we can use echo, but when you want to print a variable in echo you need to do things a little differently. So let us start with h1 heading. Now to print a variable, what you need to do is you need to use dot followed by the name of the variable, that would be str, and another dot followed by, if you want to type something along with the variable, I'm going to copy this code and paste it. Now let us change the size of the headings. And also change a variable. So in the second line we are going to print num, and in the third the float that we created. So now we have all of our variables into our echo. Now let us save this program and see what it does. So as you can see, the variables are printed on your program and you don't have to write them again and again. You can simply write the name of the variable along with echo and dot, and print it along. Now that we know about variables, suppose you want to print the names of different laptop brands available in the market. Now what you're going to do you create different variables for each name, that is a variable for HP, a variable for Lenovo, a variable for Asus, or do you want a single variable to store all of the names of the laptop brands available? Now with arrays, it is possible to store different information of the same data type, that is integer, string, under a single variable. The condition is all of the data that is stored under the variable should have the same data type. Now, let us see how array works. Now, array stores multiple values in a single variable, as we already discussed. Now, to make an array, first what we need to do is name a variable laptop brand and type in array function, and under that function we are going to write the names of different laptop brands, that is HP with separated by commas, Lenovo, Asus and Dell. So suppose these are the 4 laptop brands that are available in the market in your area. Now what you need to do is you need to print what is in this particular variable, that is laptop brand. So to print it, you need to first create variable dump. Now what variable dump does is, it, as you can see here, it exports the variable that is in its function. Now we are going to write the variable that we just created into the variable dump function, and it will just return the data type and value. Now suppose you want to print it. So to print it, what we need to do is just add echo in front of it. Okay, now before moving on to seeing the result of this program, let us just make this part of the code inactive. Now to do that, we are going to learn a new concept in between, that is comments. So comments are the lines in a code that are not executed while the program is run. So a single line comment starts with 2/ and anything written in front of it does not run along with the code. So these comments are very useful when you're writing a code to make your code readable and more understandable by any coder who will or might later on use the code that you've just created. Now suppose what we can do with comments is, I'm going to write a comment just in front of it. This is a string variable. Now after these slashes, anything written is not executed when I'm going to run the program. Also, now what do? If you want to make this whole part of the code not functioning, do you add 2/ in front of everything? Or you can use a much simpler method, that is multi-line comments. To use multi-line comments, what you're going to do is use /*. This marks the start of the multi-line code, and to end this, use star and / again, and everything in between does not run when you're going to run your program. So we will now see how this array works. We will just reload this page, and as you can see, HP, Lenovo, Asus and Dell are visible here. Also, you might notice this array 4 shows the length of the array, and this shows the position where all of these strings are inside the array. That is, an array starts with the 0 position, not 1 but 0. So the first would be 0 position, that is HP, and then 1 Lenovo, and subsequently Asus and Dell. Now suppose you just want to print the second variable in your array. What you need to do is you need to go back to your code, and in front of the variable you need to write the position that you want to print under square brackets, that is, the second position in array would be number 1. And save the code, go back to the browser, and only the second variable in the array is visible. Now suppose instead of a variable you want to create a value that you don't want to be changed throughout your entire program. So consonants are used for the same purpose. Now consonants are very much like variables, except that once they are defined, they cannot be changed or undefined. So let us see how consonants work. First, we will put this code under a comment and now start writing a consonant. So to define or create a consonant, what you need to do is use the define function, and inside the define function what you need to do is you need to write the name of the consonant. And okay, first let us write the name of the consonant. Suppose laptops, followed by the value of the HP, consonant, Lenovo and Asus, and that's it. And you close the define function, and there you have defined your consonant in your PHP script. Now this cannot be changed or undefined throughout your program. Now to print it, what you need to do is type echo followed by the name of the consonant that you just created. So the name of the consonant is laptops. Save the code, go back, and HP, Lenovo and Asus are visible here. You can also create consonant arrays along with a normal consonant. Now to create a consonant array, you just need to add a square bracket. Just a second. Let me close this one. Separated by commas, and now we have the names of the laptop as an array, which by the way cannot be changed or undefined throughout your code, just like any other consonant. Now suppose you want to just print the name of the third laptop that is available in the market. Now what you need to do is you need to write the position, and the third position in case of arrays would be number 2. Save, and only Asus is visible here. So this is how consonants and variables work in PHP. Now before moving on to the next section, let me give you another situation. Now suppose I want you to print a number only and only if it is greater than 7. How do you do that? Now since it is a condition, Conditional statements are used to perform different actions based on different conditions. Now, some of the conditional statements include in PHP are if else, if, else if, else, and switch. And we're going to discuss them one by one. So the first one is if. Now, let me create a variable. Let us name it var and write the value 8. Now, the example that we just discussed, if we want to check if this variable is greater than 7 and only then print the variable on our screen. Now to do that, what we need to do is type in if, and in the bracket we need to type the condition that we're going to check, that is if variable greater than 7. Now use curly brackets, and inside the curly bracket write the code that you want to execute only and only if the condition of this if is met. So we need to print this variable. So echo var and go and save it. Now go back and reload, and you can see 8 is printed here. Now let us go back and change the value of the variable to 5 and save it. Go back, reload, and as you can see, nothing is printed on the screen since the condition that we just mentioned inside if does not meet. Now suppose I tell you that if the condition does not meet, you have to print a string saying that the condition did not meet. How do you do that? To do it, what you need to add after if is else. And else does not need to have a condition, since as the English word suggests, it is else, which means the condition of if did not meet, and inside the else we're going to write the code echo the condition did not meet. Save it. The condition did not meet. Now time for another condition. Now suppose I ask you to check if a number is divisible by 2, 3 or both. How do you do that? Now to do that, first let us create a number 6. Now check if variable %2 is equals to 0. Now what this shows is this brings out the remainder, and if the remainder is 0, that means it is divisible by 2. And we need to add one more condition here, and variable %3 equals to 0. And what this does is it checks if both of these conditions are true, that is, if the number inside the variable is divisible by both 2 and 3, we will display divisible by both. Now what we need to do is we need to check if it is divisible by 2. So else if. So since it is else if, we need to add a condition in it too. Else if variable %2 equals to 0. Echo divisible by 2. Similarly, divisible by 3. Another, you can add as many else if statements as you want, and the final else will show okay. Let us go back and save a program. Since a variable is 6, it should show divisible by both. And you can see it shows exactly the same, divisible by both. Now let us change the value and see if our program works. So what we are going to do is we are going to change the value to 4, save our program and run it again. Divisible by 2. Similarly, 9, divisible by 3, and finally 13, not divisible by either 2 or 3. So this is how you can make use of if, else if, and else statements. Now the next conditional statement is switch statement. Now the switch statement is used to perform different actions based on different conditions. So let me again give you a situation so that you understand better. So suppose you're playing a game which has 4 different levels, and first level is easy, medium, hard, and extreme. So you need to print that. Now what will you do? You can also use if else if, but it's a lot of code. Switch statement makes it a lot simpler and more readable. So what we need to do is we need to type in switch. Okay, first what we need to do is first we need to create a variable. So a variable, suppose, let us name it level, and level is 3. To create a switch statement, you need to type in switch and enter the name of the variable that will be passed into the switch statement to check for the conditions. Level, and it also begins with a curly bracket, and inside the switch statement what you need to do is you need to type case. That is, the first case would be case 1 followed by a colon and the statement that you want to execute, that is echo you are playing at easy level. And since you want your program to stop here itself, what you need to do is you need to type in break. Similarly for rest of the levels, I'll just copy this code here. 2, 3, and 4, and just make the changes. And similar to if-else statements, you also need to add another statement that would be default if any of the conditions are not met in the switch statement. Suppose the value of your variable is 20, which does not make any sense to the game, then what you need to do is you need to display a default error message, and that would be invalid input. And you also need to end the switch statement with a curly braces and end the PHP program. Alright, let us save it, go to a browser and run. You are playing at hard level. I guess you must have understood the concept. Let us just one more time change the value of the variable to 20, save it, go back, invalid input. So this is how the conditional statements in PHP work. Next, what we're going to talk about is PHP loops. Now suppose you want to run a block of code or a part of code again and again and again, or in other words, in loop. So PHP has that functionality known as PHP loops to do the same task. Now there are different types of PHP loops available, that is while, do while and for loops, which we will be discussing in this part of the video. Now let us start with the while loop. Now the while loop loops through a block of code as long as the condition that you have entered or specified in the while loop is true. So let me just remove it. Now to write a while loop, what you need to do is type while followed by the condition. And to write the condition, what we need to first do is let us create a variable and well give it a value of 2. Now the condition which we are going to write is, this is just an example, so if or while the value of variable is less than equals to 10, and then we follow along with the curly braces and type the code that we want to run again and again until the value of a variable becomes 10 or till the value of a variable is less than 10. Suppose number, then the variable, that is where, and that's about it. Now what we need to do is we need to increase the value of the variable, else this code will run for an infinite amount of time and the system might crash. So to increase the variable in each iteration, what we need to do is we need to use the ++ operator, which will increase the value of the variable by 1 in each iteration. Now we're going to save the code and run it. Number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and so on. Let me just add a break here, and you can see all of the numbers up until 10 are visible here, and after 10 the loop just stops. So let me explain it again. So what we are doing is we are writing while along with the condition until when the code is supposed to be run again and again. So the condition is if the value of the variable is less than or equals to 10. Since a value of our variable is 2, the condition is true, so the code inside of this while is executed and the code will display the value of the number and the variable value will increase with each iteration until it becomes greater than 10 and then the loop will exit. Now the do while loop is very similar to the while one, the only difference being in case of a do while loop, a code, this code will execute at least once. I'll show you how it works. So in case of do while, we start with do curly braces. Let us use this same example. And after the curly braces, what we do is we write while along with the condition, that is equals to 10. Let me just okay. Now let me tell you why do we need do while loop. Suppose the value of a variable is 11. Now since the condition does not meet, in case of the while loop it will not even run once. Now suppose you want to display the current value of the variables whether or not if it meets the condition at least once. So in case of do while, it will first go into this do loop, run the code, and then after the do loop is complete, this part of the code is complete, it will go on to the while part and check the condition. Now if the condition does not meet, the loop will end here, and if it meets, it will continue until the condition does not meet the while part. So it will run at least once. Now save this and go back to a browser and reload this program, and as you can see, number 11 is visible here. So do while is helpful in some cases, which you'll realize as you start coding more and more. Now next up is for loop. Now for loop is used when we already know how many times we want the loop to run. So for loop is used when you want to run a piece of code a specific number of times. Now let me show you how it works. Now the for loop is written in 3 parts. Here we don't need to define a variable beforehand. The first part of the for loop is defining the value of the variable. So variable is equals to, let us value it at 1. Now we want to make it run till suppose 6 values. So what we need to do is we need to write the condition in the second part of the for loop. If variable less than equals to 6, and in the third part will be the incremental part. So as you can notice, in while and do while, we put the incremental part inside the block of the code. Here the incremental part is inside the for function itself. Variable plus plus, and then we start with the curly braces and we write the code similar to, I'll just copy it from here and now let us just save it and print to show you how it works. number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now these loops are a very important aspect of programming, and you all should try out different problems based on loops by yourself. Now next up in PHP is PHP functions. Now functions are a very useful and very important part of programming in any language. Functions are of two types: built-in functions and user-defined functions. Now built-in functions are the functions that are already present inside the framework of your programming language. A very popular example of a built-in function of PHP is echo. Echo is a function that is already built in PHP and is used to print out variables, strings, and values on the screen. Now, user-defined functions are functions you create yourself to use a code repeatedly in your program. So I'll explain you while writing the code itself. So suppose you want to use this for code 4 or 5 times in your program. So, or even more, maybe 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 times in your program. If you're writing a very large program, you want to print or use this part of the code 100 times in your program. What do? Do you write this entire code or copy paste this entire code again and again 100 times and make your code lengthier? Or do you just want to use this piece of code from here, from anywhere in your program? Now, to do that, we need to put this piece of code inside a user-defined function. So how do we do that? We do that by writing function followed by, suppose you want to call this function a name and start with curly braces. Now this is a user-defined function named name. Now inside this name function is a piece of code, this for. Now how do we reuse it? I'll show you in a second. So suppose you are a long way from your code, from this code. You don't even know where it is. You want to use this code again after writing hundreds of lines of code. So how do you do it? You just type the name of the function, that is name, and close it. That's about it. This is called calling a function. So it is similar to calling a friend for help. So here you just called your friend name to execute this part of the code. Here, save, and well, there are no changes since the output will be the same. Let us make some changes. Add another echo. I'm going to run it again later. And call this function again. Save it. And as you can see, once the function is called, the output is printed, and I'm going to run it again later, and then again the function is called and it uses the same piece of code again and again and again. See how simple coding can be when you know what to use when. Now we move on to the final part of the video, that is creating a form and collecting its information to display on a screen using PHP. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file, say form.html, and start writing some HTML code for a form. form action. Now here what I'm doing is you need to pay a lot of attention. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write form.php. Now this is the file that I'm going to be creating later on, which will be linked to this HTML file, which will in turn run the PHP script on the HTML page on a web browser. We also need to write the method that will be post. Now let us create a very simple form that will display the name, email, and I think that's about it. Name, input type would be text, second would be email, input type would be text, name, no, this would not be name, this will be email. Also, this is just for example. You can also put the input type as email for an email and input type as password for a password. And let us add one more field. Only two fields will not look good. So let's say blood group. Input type would be text, name be group, and I think our form is complete. Let us have a look. Now what we're going to do is, since we created a new file, we have to go to the concepts folder and look at the new file form.html. Click on it, and as you can see, it is the basic form that we just created: name, email, and blood group. Now we need to add one more thing in our form, that is the submit button, which will submit the details of the form. Let us go back and save, reload, and here we have a submit button. It does nothing yet. Now we are going to create form.php file and write a PHP script to collect the form data. Let us start our PHP script. Let me indent it a little bit. So in this PHP script, what we're going to do is we are going to create three variables separately for all the three values in a form. That is, you can name it anything. So the first variable could be the same as name. Now to retrieve the value from the form, what you need to use is an array post. Now this super global array is used to retrieve the value from the form. Now in this post array, what you need to enter is the name that you just entered for the values in the fields. So we named it name. Second variable would be for the email. You can name it anything else. What you need to have same is this name with this name. Now third, let us change the name. The third was blood group, so we'll type in the complete blood group, use the post global variable, and here we will write the name what we've just given here, which would be B group. And now what we need to do is we need to display this information that we just retrieved from the form on our page. So to display it, echo information display let us start with name. And copy this code instead of writing it again and again. Email, blood group, and go save it and enter the details in our form. Mac email address would be mac@simplylearn.com and blood group would be B positive, which we all should be, and let us click on submit. Information display, as you can see, name, email, and blood group is displayed. So let me just add save it, go back, and the information is displayed a little neatly now. So you get the point. We use post method to retrieve the information from our forms. We also can use get method, but it is not secure. In case of get method, all the information is also displayed in the URL section of the web page. Hence, it is not usually recommended in case of secure transactions especially. So these were some PHP concepts to get you started with PHP programming. There is a lot more to learn, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, do hit the like button and subscribe to Simplilearn for more such content. Stay safe and keep learning.
Hi there, if you like this video, subscribe to the Simplilearn YouTube channel and click here to watch similar videos. To nerd up and get certified, click here.